The online dialogue series of RefuPoet was commissioned by the Special Initiative on Displacement SIF program of the Civil Peace Service of GIZ. We appreciate the discussions and insights shared. The opinions expressed in these dialogue series are those of the speakers. They do not necessarily reflect the opinions or views of GIZ. Hello and welcome. Welcome to Try My Shoe. Thank you for being a part of my journey in learning and unlearning. And I welcome you if this is your first time. So karibu sana. My name is Deutsche Gesellschaft and I am your host. So what do we talk about on this amazing podcast? We talk about matters refugees. We talk about matters host communities. We talk about every single thing that humanizes refugees. We try as much as possible to understand what it is like to be a refugee. We try as much as possible to try their shoes. So welcome to this particular episode. And this conversation is made possible by Anika Initiative and RefuPoet. So quick one on this too. So RefuPoet, so this is RefuPoet 2021 edition, and what happens is these two organizations actively think about refugees, and they are powered by GIZ and CPS Special Initiative on Displacement, and that is why we are having these conversations on refugees and persons who've been displaced. So thank you so much for being here. And today we are exploring localization of laws and policies. We are exploring what it is like to be a refugee and face the law. What does it mean to try and take on economic activities and you are either able to or unable to, but you are not a local citizen? What is it really like? And I also want us to delve into people's stories, because I believe in humanizing experiences. And today, I have one, our panel, and two, in-studio guests, which I am so excited for you to meet. So I will introduce you to our panelists. So karibu sana, and we will start with you, gentlemen. Karibu.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Ojuni Ojulu Ochala. I'm an Ethiopian refugee who have been in Kenya for the last more than 10 years. I can say that I'm working with the community-based organization called the Anua Community Association in Kenya, which advocate for access to services in their locality and also just serve other communities from diverse other countries. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for being here, and it is always a pleasure. This is the second time having you here, and I am glad you came back. Asante.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting me for the second time.
Karibu. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome. Kindly introduce yourself.
Thank you. I'm Ayan Mohammed Yusuf from Isli. I'm a Somali refugee. Actually, I work with the Somali and the refugee community in Isli about ending GBV against women, because I know women are the most vulnerable and girls, and so that we can build the foundation that about the early marriages and FGM, it's there with the Somali communities. So we want to end it so that at least we can have a peaceful and nice, lovely life.
Interaction. Thank you so much. I am looking forward to you telling us about your life and your stories, and I'm super excited for that. So thank you for agreeing to be here.
Thank you too.
Thank you. Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Thanks a lot, and I'm happy to be here. My name is Simon Mutinyu. I work with the Refugee Consortium of Kenya, the implementing partner of UNHCR. we're dealing mainly with the legal representation for refugees and psychosocial support, but most fundamentally, advocacy for laws and policies, as well as governance work in the country. Thanks again for having us.
Thank you for being here, Simon.
Asante.
You told me that the most interesting bit of your work is working with people.
Yes.
And I am excited to hear about your experiences working with people.
Definitely.
Karibu.
Asante.
Hi.
Hi.
Karibu sana.
Asante. My name is Amina Mohamed Ali. I've worked with refugees for many years. I was with UNHCR. I've worked with British High Commission, basically resettling refugees and repatriation. Currently, I'm a founder and work with a CBO called Pamoja Gender Youth Initiative. We also work with refugees in terms of skills training. We also do SGBV awareness. I know it's a very sensitive topic in my community. I mean, because I'm a Somali speaking, it's easier for them to interact with me and approach me before they're able to approach other organizations or seek legal help. But still, it's a sensitive topic because they do not like to highlight it because of the culture, the religion, and etc.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking time off doing the very important thing you're doing to come here. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'd like us to get your story, Ayana. So kindly tell us about you.
And hi everyone, and thank you for hosting me here today. Actually, I'm Ayan, as I said before, and actually I came from Somalia, like 1995, somewhere there, when I was very young age, and I was like 3 to 4 years, and I have been in Italy for that, for all those years. Actually, what makes me to start to do community work and to join a CBO for at least to help the communities is because I'm a victim and I have experienced many things and I have been neglected because most of our parents, they don't actually understand the kids and they're not even educated, and so that and they left their kids just like that. And so and what makes me to work with the women is because I know I do something called parenting conscious, because I know when the parents are there for their kids, talking to them, being kind-hearted to them and something like that will make the kid at least grow up in a nice and good environment. What makes me start the community GBV and ending GBV and early marriages from the women is tulikuwa okay. Can I talk? And we are victim. Actually, my sister died, and my younger sister, she experienced, and I was there with her, and we experienced many things and outside the community, outside there, and my parents didn't know that. So I grew up, and Kenya imenifanya nianze to work with the community and girls wasichana wasipitie the experience my sister amepitia, aliolesha akiwa 12 years old, and my parents, they didn't know the consequences and something like that, and later on she died while giving birth. So I don't want others to experience those stuff, so that I do awareness for women and girls at least waoleshe wasichana hao in their consent kama wame grow up, and they know at least I know how to handle my marriage and everything. So I don't want others to experience. And yeah.
Thank you for sharing your story. Asante sana.
Thank you.
I have a question, Simon.
Yes.
What happens when Ayan comes to you with that story? I mean, first of all, the sister was put through early marriage. Number 2, she died during childbirth. I don't know much about law, but I feel like this is a lot of infringement on her human rights. So what happens when Ayan comes to you and is seeking for legal advice on matters surrounding her community, surrounding, say, her sister and the people she's reaching out to?
Thanks a lot for that. First of all, refugees living in Kenya are subject to the laws of the country.
Okay.
They have the right to go through the legal system of the country, just like any other Kenyan.
Okay.
The most fundamental thing is that once, of course, that kind of a case is reported to us, our main work is legal representation. But first of all, we also support them to understand their story, to know the procedure and the process they need to go through, to support them and help them get justice. So first of all, we address their story. We make sure that the evidence they have is protected. We ensure that they go through the psychosocial therapy and counseling, so that, again, that pain does not inflict them and harm them more. And then secondly, we support through the court processes to ensure that as a survivor of that kind of harm or gender-based violence goes through the process in court, gets supported fully through our lawyers or advocates who go to court. Of course, such kind of cases could be are criminal in nature, but the most fundamental thing is to ensure that the office of the DPP, Director of Public Prosecution, is supported by us watching briefing in court to ensure that the proper evidence is tabled before the courts, and that the survivor is also supported through that process. They come to court, they give their evidence so that we are able to support them through that. But again, we also support in the community through advocacy processes. As she said, they have started their own CBOs to try and offer that community support, that knowledge. Because as they say, most of these people are not aware. But you see, ignorance of the law is no defense at all. So we try to support communities to understand the laws, what the law says. That a child is someone who is below 18. What can those children do and what can't they do? Yeah. So we have had cases of children who go through early child marriages. We have had cases of children who are defiled. We have had cases of children who go through physical abuse and even mental abuse. So we try to expand the knowledge of the communities to understand that this is wrong and this is right. And in cases where there's that kind of harm, what should be done? How can you approach the legal authorities for you to be able to be supported?
Okay, so Amina, despite, what Simon has described seems very flawless, very accessible, and it sounds like a good thing. Is it though? Is it accessible? And how do we guarantee that a person who's experienced police brutality, a person who's experienced gender-based violence, a person who is scared for their own security and is not a Kenyan, how do we ensure that they get the same services that a member in the host community is entitled to get? I mean, I understand Simon has made it very clear that every single person is allowed to access these services. The law is, you are granted to access I don't know how to say, but I'll say legal help. Yeah, you are granted to access it. So how accessible is it though for members in the host for refugees?
As I said, there's usually with refugees there's barrier of language. Majority of them come from countries maybe which are not speaking Swahili or not speaking English. So our two official languages are English and Swahili. So if you're not speaking either of them, how will you translate anything? How will you understand what are your legal rights, where to approach, how to go about it? unfortunately, most refugees, when they come to Kenya, the first experience they have, or the first experience they experience mostly is with police, and they're asked about identity and, your legal status. They come to understand later on in either in a police cell or the judicial system, maybe in court, that they were entitled to A, B, C, D.
Okay.
Yeah. So unfortunately, as much as these systems are there, but majority of refugees come to understand later on.
So how
as my experience. I mean, there's a lot of suggestions. Most of us are faith-oriented. You're a Christian or you're a Muslim. So I don't know, would it be ideal for the churches and the mosques to have some information whereby they can tell them, this is where you go, this is how you go. In Europe and in America, if you go back to history about refugees, the refugees who fled the World War I when they went to US, the first approach was either the synagogue or the affiliated religious entities which were there to assist them. So should we involve also the faith sectors to assist in terms of ensuring that this information is taken across and explained across?
Yeah. So Ojuni, that was a question, but so probably
yes,
you can go with it with your colleague.
Yeah. In fact, I thank Simon. Simon has really expressed it exhaustively that the procedures to be followed. But sometimes, yes, as they are stated or as they are appearing on the papers, they may not happen. Sometimes you have to go extra miles. Maybe if I can give an example of an experience I had yesterday, because whatever she's explaining just is one of the so many problems that refugees are going through, and most of the time reporting to legal partner organizations. Yesterday, I had an instance, of course, with all the privacy of the client.
Yeah.
A mother who got married to a fellow Somali, and then he tricked the wife to go and visit the family members in Somalia, where now just the wife gave birth to a child. And then from there after, the husband, the ex-husband went to the Norway. Then along the way, he snatched the child from the ex-wife, and gave it to his sister. Then a group of 3 women came, the one of them being the mother, as she has explained. Language was a problem. No English, no Kiswahili. So we were using the third party now just to convey the message so that we act. So after explaining everything, now that's now just where I say just service providers, especially staff members who are working within these institutions, they really have to take that from a human position. You don't have to receive it as just an information. This is a mother who gave birth to a child and snatched away from her. So assume you are the one. What will you do, or what would you like to be done for you? So the base I did I had a personal police officer contact who is actually just the deputy OCS of Pangani Police Station. He was my first point of contact. I called him and I explained everything to him. So the first question that came was that, do they have an OB number? Then I said yes. Then he said, just take a snapshot of the OB number and send it to me. In less than 10 minutes, he had already checked the OB number, known the investigating officer who recorded the statement, and then from there now he referred us to California police post, of course on phone.
Yeah.
And then said, just talk to Mr. Officer so-and-so, he will act. Because the information that came with the mother is that the sister of the ex-husband is actually just to leave the country the next morning with the child. So
is that human trafficking? Is it? Let me not say isn't it. Is this human trafficking?
It is.
It is, yeah?
It is, yeah, because it comes in several folds. Because, yes, it has the bit of human trafficking, just it has the part of SGBV on the mother of the child. It has the psychosocial impact, again, on both mother and the child. So it comes in several folds. So, but what we did, we got hold of the officer at California Police Post. Then now just the mother plus 2 other women, they went, and actually they were attended to. And I believe the woman plus the child, they were intercepted, and now I think they are waiting for the due process of court.
Oh, wow. So, first off, from what you've just told me, I can hear a lot of psychosocial involvement of the family, involvement of the society, even to facilitate this child's removal from the mother and exchange to another place. So, how do we interact with psychosocial support, including a religious institution? I mean, as you mentioned, how do we interact in these institutions in a way that is actually beneficial to the person? It's beneficial to the refugees, because in this case, it clearly worked against them. So how do we make sure that this is actually beneficial, and can laws be used to support an individual? Can laws be used to support the society? Yeah. So I will ask you, Ojuni, to please answer that. Then maybe Simon, you can answer a bit of that also on laws.
Okay, I think just as my sister Amina had said earlier, that just religious institutions, they are heavily involved, especially in the psychosocial support of families or even just members of the congregations. I believe that is also the same with Islam faith, that in the churches where I go, and I believe in many other, just there are counselors who are there, just pastors are there to serve as counselors, of course, with the extreme privacy and ensuring that whatever they are sharing just is held confidential. It is not shared with any other member of the congregation. So yes, the services are there, but now just how can the government step in and really make it more, yes, maybe the counseling which is being done in the churches or maybe in the mosque or any religious institutions might be faith-based, but how can it be improved with the current or with today's developmental and psychosocial input in it or aspect in it? Those are now some of the things that we may need to work closely with the government institutions and see how to revamp and support religious institutions to provide these services to the affected community.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to come to you, Simon, but before that, we're going to take questions and comments from our in-studio panelists. So does anyone have any questions so far? Any comments?
Okay, thank you. My name is Liz. I'm a refugee and I'm also a student from DRC. My question goes to Mr. Ojuni. You've talked of a case of a woman, the case that you've talked about. My question is, how did the woman find out about your services, and what are you doing to make sure that other refugees also who come in the country, who are going maybe through the same or any other problem, how are you making sure that they know of your services and they get them? Thank you.
Thank you so much for that question. Any more questions? Can I pick one more? Okay, I think we will address that. It was a direct question to you.
Yeah, thank you for raising that question. Actually, as I think I have the opportunity to have to serve both in the community-based organization called ACAK, and then just serving also as paralegal with Kituo cha Sheria. In that aspect, the story that I had shared earlier just was from the prospect of Kituo cha Sheria. Kituo cha Sheria, just as some of you or many people know, just is the oldest legal entity in Kenya. It was established in 1973 by then young university students, including the former CJ, Dr. Willie Mutunga, and several others who felt that just the legal services were that expensive for ordinary Kenyans to access legal services. So they thought, and then they came together and then formed this entity to serve poor and marginalized members of the community to access legal services. So yes, we have 3 offices. Our head office based at Ole Ndume. We have a regional office in Mombasa and the Forced Migration Program based in Pangani. The reason why we are in Pangani is to make it more accessible, because we feel that there is a big presence of refugees in Pangani, Mlango Kubwa, Eastland, Oruma, and all these places. So normally what we do, we have walk-in services that we offer to clients. We do also go out for legal aid services within the community, and we do community outreach. And then for clients who come to the office, after we attend to them, we normally give them some flyers, brochures, where they go to the community and share with their community members. And again, we also have paralegals within the community who refer clients to our office. I think that is how we normally do it. And I believe it is also the same with my colleague, Simon.
Is it the same?
Yeah, pretty much the same. One of the things that we do in the communities is to deal with the refugee leaders. Most of these refugees and asylum seekers in the country, especially in the urban areas, live as a community. So they have their own leaders. But the thing I want to address is the challenge that they face mainly. We have asylum seekers and refugees who do not have documents, the necessary documents, to be in the country. So most of them are usually apprehensive, even to approach legal authorities and get some help. If you're having an expired refugee ID or an asylum seeker pass that was given maybe 5 years ago, it has not been renewed, you do not have documents, so you're apprehensive because the police will be on your neck. Once you go there, you feel that I'm not in my country, and once I go to the authorities, to the local chief or the local police, then I will also be arrested or something like that. So what we do, we normally engage the refugee leaders in the communities in various estates, because they are the first port of call once these persons of concern, of course, have issues within the community. So we engage them, train them, sensitize them on matters that require some support. But at the same time, as well, ensuring that the host community members also understand what refugees go through. One thing I would like to point out is that even with our police force, nobody teaches them on refugee regulations or refugee law. So most of them come into contact with the refugee matters when they are on duty. So they do not understand that this is a refugee. They have no idea what a refugee document looks like. So once you ask, nitaisaidia kitambulisho, and someone produces an asylum seeker pass, an A4 paper called asylum seeker pass. Yes.
You get a paper first, and then you get the blue
the ID, which could come maybe like 3 years or 4 years later.
But in the meantime, you're walking around with a paper.
You're walking around with an A4 paper called an asylum seeker pass or a proof of registration document. A police officer has got no idea what that one is all about. And nakwambia mimi nimekuitisha kitambulisho, hii ni vitu gani unanipatia? So they do not understand those. So part of our program is to sensitize the stakeholders, especially in the security sector, about the refugee laws and regulations and documentation. What is required of them. And then secondly, to also sensitize the asylum seekers, or those persons who are in the country and they are not Kenyans, to be able to go and register as persons who require asylum in the country, because that is extremely key. In Nairobi alone, perhaps you have around 28,000 registered refugees. But we know, like in Italy, even the number is beyond that of those people who are not registered. They just live here as they call themselves refugees, but they are not refugees, because you can only become a refugee once you are registered and documented. So one of the things is to ensure that those people get the necessary information to go and get documented, register and get documented. And the law has always been a challenge. In terms of, as they say, as Ojoni was pointing out, and as Amina was saying, most of these issues that these refugees go through are faith-based and cultural. So they do not even understand that they are illegal or unlawful. So a child marriage case among the Somalis is very normal. Marrying a 13-year-old is the norm. But they do not know that that one is unlawful.
It's illegal.
While in Kenya. So those are the parts of the things that we need to train our community members. We need to train our refugee community members and the host communities to understand that is unlawful. But most fundamentally, again, to also educate our host community members on how to learn to live with the refugees and asylum seekers within the community.
Within our community.
Yes.
Thank you. Is your question answered?
Yes.
All right, I'm glad. Just, will you give me one minute? Then I will come to you. All right. Okay. Ayan, you work at the local level with individuals who maybe some are documented, some are not. How do you go about ensuring that they are able to access some services? So, for example, if someone is not documented, I assume they would have a problem even reporting if they're in trouble. So how do you, if someone is not documented, they'd also have a problem saying, I want to start a business. And how do I remit my taxes or paying to the city council, for example? So how do you go about this? You work at the local communities.
Yeah, true. And at the first place, I never knew that a refugee can get a business permit until I met Kituo cha Sheria and in Westlands. So they said that at least you can get they help the people in a legal processing and something like that. So nowadays, if we get like to say a member or a victim that it doesn't have a document and he or she has been harassed by the police, so we actually refer to them to the Kituo cha Sheria and other humanitarian aids. Let's say that now I'm in a dilemma. We have a girl. And she's from Zambia. She's a refugee from Zambia. She has her document expired 2017, and actually now she has to do her degree. She can't proceed further. She went to they are called the RAS. So she wanted to at least to get a document. Maybe she can become the Kenyan refugee who lived in here, because she said that we moved from Zambia. And they told them, at least you have to go to Zambia to renew your...
Wait.
Yeah.
That's what Russ said?
Yes, she said that to me. I sent her there. She said now they can't get the new arrival. They can't register new people, right? Yeah. So she has been said that either you go to your UNHCR or you go to the original place that you get from your...
Go back home.
Yeah, go back home and then renew your ID and then come back. And now she can't leave the country because her ID has expired 2017. And what can we do about that?
Yeah.
And I don't have knowledge. I can't send people. She doesn't have any document. Yeah.
Amina, what would happen in this case?
It is challenging, but I would actually advise that you ask her to go to UNHCR. Because if she's a refugee, she needs to be legally, have a legal status here. And UNHCR is the first contact because it's an organization that represents refugees. If that's not the case, maybe Kituo cha Sheria or RCK. But continue being here illegally, it's quite dangerous because even she might require medical attention.
Yeah.
How do you get access to that? She might require, legal, maybe police or something like that. How do you access such? She will not be, unfortunately, be able to access any of those facilities unless she has the legal documentation.
True.
So the first stop for any person who's experienced displacement is documentation.
Documentation.
No matter how hard it is, you first need to remember to get documented.
It's very sad because you see, you come across such cases whereby it's urgent.
Yes.
This person's child is snatched. There's child trafficking here, human trafficking here. How do you deal with that? And maybe the parent is not registered.
Yeah, how do you start even saying?
It's a dilemma. The law does not, I don't think there's a legal, there's a room to maneuver because it's clear you can only access A, B, C, D if you're registered. As far as my knowledge is, but I will refer back to my colleagues.
Let me say something before I hand it over to Simon. I know Simon will polish it further.
And then after this round, we'll take your question.
In fact, I think when we were in the boardroom, we were discussing about the closure of RAS registration, at least for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
That there was no registration happening. But what we normally do, and I believe together with the RCK and other stakeholders, is to advocate with the government. At least the junior staff at Refugee Affairs Secretariat, and even just the whole Refugee Affairs Secretariat, understands the problem and the challenge that comes with not having a document. But now the issue comes now just from their seniors, from the Ministry of Interior and Coordination, that say that just registration should stop. And then if they said should stop, full stop, that's it. But now just should we have a small corridor for such problems? Like, for example, just if you are, as human being, even as Kenyans, you never know, an emergency would not come and whisper to you that maybe in the next 5 minutes, just ensure that something will happen. It doesn't whisper. So the best thing just to do is to have a small corridor, as much as it is closed, because of maybe perceived or real security threat, as Ministry of Interior claim. We have to have a small corridor where we can address such problems. And specifically now, just education, yes, is one of the basic right. And then if you go to the Refugee Act, or even just the international instrument governing refugee regime, is that just every person has the right to seek asylum in any country. So, and it is domesticated. So the same way you were saying that just the policies, are they really in operation, or are they really being implemented? Then at that area you will say no, because yes, as much as it says that you have the right to seek asylum, it starts with registration, it starts with documentation. And if it is not there, then what is happening? This policy or this instrument meant nothing to refugees. So yes, we will continue pushing for a small corridor where we have a small registration, or a small window where we can have deserving refugees being registered despite closure. Simon.
Just a quick one on that, just to pick up from where he has left. Right now it's true. Refugee Affairs Secretary is not doing much of the registration.
Why?
It's a government directive.
Okay.
Although it's not very clear as well.
Okay.
As much. But one of the things that they do is that they normally consider registrations at this moment majorly on one, referral from a legal entity or UNHCR, and number two, with a court order. So if one can be able to get a court order for registration, they will normally do that kind of registration.
So, sorry, for me to get a court order, what do I need to do?
Yeah, I wanted to
Of course, you will definitely...
you should have next time just shoot.
The law, as they say, is a bit complicated on this, because first of all, you'll have to be charged in court.
Okay, so you go to the police station and say, charge me.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I'm illegally here.
No, so I can get registered.
I'm illegally here.
Okay.
I'm not a Kenyan. I'm not
Refugee.
I'm not a refugee. I'm not a Kenyan. I'm unlawfully in the country. One of the things we are doing at RCK is to train the court users committees, especially magistrates, on how to handle this matter. So yes, the law is not clear. But what the magistrates are doing and the courts are doing at the moment, once they are approached in that manner, is to give a directive or an order for that person that this is a case of an asylum seeker. There is a possibility this person is here to seek asylum. So the order is to the Refugee Affairs Secretariat to consider, to assess, to do an assessment, what they normally call the RSD, the Refugee Status Determination process, for us to do that kind of process. So once that is done, yes, RAS will register. The snapshot of it is that we have thousands of asylum seekers in the country who require that kind of service. But how many of them will get that kind of access?
Yeah.
It is not possible, especially in the urban areas. I have seen it a lot at the points of entry in the flight corridors, like between Isiolo and Moyale, where the courts will order for that person to be registered. Those people have to be moved from Moyale to Nairobi because RAS is only situated in Nairobi. The point is they're supposed to be decentralized, but they're not. So that is the only way that those people could be registered for now. But again, the Refugee Act is undergoing a lot of amendments. In fact, it has already been passed. The Refugee Bill of 2019 has been passed in Parliament. It has got a lot of positive and progressive clauses that will support refugees once it's assented to by the President.
I'd like you to just hold it right there so we can delve into the Refugee Act, 2019. You said 2019, 2020?
The Refugee Bill.
The Refugee Bill 2019? Yes, Refugee Bill 2019. So in the meantime, let me just get one question from... yes.
Can I address a question to my colleague?
Okay.
When you talked about training the magistrates, but for example, if the first of contact is police station, how will a police understand that this person is here reporting on being illegal in the country, and how should they be handled? The processing procedure from the police station
to the magistrate
to now the court.
Yeah, just 1 second.
Especially urban.
Let's hold it right there, and then we collect questions from our in studio in studio audience, and then we'll come back to you, and then Sir, you had a question.
Okay, my name is James Yendak. I'm from Launuer Community Finance Association. My question is goes to Kituo, like Ujuni and Simon, in terms of documentation. Now it is a big challenge with many refugees because documentation, it is a big challenge.
Yeah.
One, issue of banking, because now I may be having money. Before, we are refugee alien ID have been allowed by the Safaricom to open up M-Pesa. Now the government closed that one.
Yeah.
Now where will we put our money? Again, with the issue of the new arrival. Since the corona came, no registration. And refugees, they are here in the country, many of them. I wrote a list to Kituo for new arrival in my area. So now no response. My question will be, what is the way forward currently?
With regard of
the closure.
Okay.
Because Kituo, on 7 July, they went to court for hearing. Now, what is the way forward? What is the decision? What did they say? So we need to inform the community this is the way to go.
Thank you so much for the question.
According to law, for example, in Chapter 4, Bill of Rights, we are all equal. Despite you are a Kenyan, you are a Sudanese like me.
We all need to be treated equally. Okay.
In that position.
Thank you so much for the question. Is there any more questions from the in-studio panelists? I will take that as a no. All right. So, that question, and you have been put on the spot. RCK na kituo cha sheria, you are on the spot. But before then, we had a question from Amina. You also have a question.
But my question has been questioned by...
has been asked already. Yeah. Okay. Kazi kwenye Simon na Ojuni. And then...
Yes.
I want to say something.
Okay.
And actually, let's say that in Isli, we have many problems in Somali community. The language barrier, as Amina said, it's there.
It's a huge problem.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. People don't understand Somali and Kiswahili and English. And as Kituo cha Sheria or RCK, mostly they don't have their interpreters. Let's say last time
today you're being put on the spot.
An office was being opened by 4th Street by organization called Hazard. We are actually partners. It's an office for GBV victims. So the people talked, and the mothers and the women, the girls that were there, they didn't even understand even a little bit.
Oh no.
Walikuwa naongelea, this is your office for GBVs and this and that. hawaelewi. Baadaye venye hiyo kitu imeisha ndo alisema mlikuwa mnaongelelea nini, we have to take back to the community. You have to go take back to the community what you have been said, because ilisemekana it's an open office for everyone, it's free, come for counseling. If you have a GBV victims among you issues, be open. Like Somali community, when it's come to sexual violence, they can't be open. They are stigmatized by the other communities. What will they say? So that they marry off their daughter. Like to say the daughter has been raped by the relative. They sit together with the relative, the perpetrator, and then they come up with a solution without them going to the legal, like seeking police, justice, to the police. And going to the police, most of the refugees, they don't know Swahili, they don't know in English. Going to the police, nikiwaambia, go and report this issue to the police and get your OB, and then take your daughter to the hospital so that aonekane. Anasema tuwezi enda to the police. Unajua hao wenyewe wanaogopa, wanasema police are not even,
they don't know how to handle us.
They don't know how to handle us. They don't even know our issues. Wanasema tukienda, most of the police nowadays wamejua Somali, wanambia wewe unatafuta resettlement with this stuff, and tumepatana na hiyo issues. So I want kituo and RCK at least to be more elaborate, and at least watuambie what's the way forward, because the issues and the problems are there.
So let me just try break down. So number 1, way forward with registration. Number 2, way forward with come 2022, what is the current stand? Number 3, availability and access these services. Have I covered? I feel like I've covered everything.
Let me add on one thing. Availability, it is available. I mean, they have illustrated that earlier. The issue is communication, understanding. Whoever is approaching you, do they have an interpreter in place that you explain to them, or they're able to explain to you what services they need? As she said earlier, opening an office and discussing in a language where people are not understanding.
It's a
language is a big barrier.
Yes, in fact, I'm happy that the organization that opened an office in Isli, I'm happy that she told us that they are working in partnership with. And that will take me now just to the refugee-led organizations thing, that they have to work in collaboration and in cooperation with the organizations who are providing services. Like if you take an example of Kituo, I believe RCK, they have interpreters based in their offices. Maybe sometimes when they go out in the field, they also just go with interpreters. But now just with the new offices which are coming up or opening, maybe they assume that the fact that refugees have stayed in Kenya for long, maybe they understand Kiswahili or English, which is an assumption. That is something that need to be worked on. The other thing that Simon has been saying, or the question which was asked by Amina, like how will a refugee know that they should say this when they are arrested or stopped?
And also the police, how will the police know? What codes are they charging them on? Are the police trained?
Actually, the charges is that just once you are stopped, like Simon was expressing it earlier, that you are stopped by a police and you are asked to produce a document, and then an identity document, which is supposed to be a smaller in size, and you are producing an A4 size document. Most of the time what they do, just they put you in and then charge you with unlawfully presence in the country. So with that now, just unlawful presence in the country, most of the time just for magistrates who have not attended the CUC training, as Simon has said, most of the time just they take that and then charge them under immigration law, which is not the case. So
what happens when you're charged under immigration law within the Kenyan context?
Within the Kenyan context now, just you have either serve, and then after you serve your sentence, then you are deported. You will be deported. But now, just with refugees, it is different. With refugees, number one, if one or an asylum seeker express their intention to seek asylum, now that's now when RAS comes in. The most important thing that's normally done, even court, they normally seek services of interpreters in court. So before they appear, normally, if you take an example of Makadara Law Code, there is cells behind. Then you go and then you talk to to an inmate or a refugee or an asylum seeker who have been arrested. Then you ask them. And again, around this area, there are something that will come in fold with that one. Because for me, just I had that experience. I normally go into the cells, talk to the refugees or asylum seekers. Some of them are actually intercepted. They are victims of human trafficking. I know, I believe you have come across such. Yeah. Sometimes just they are ferried from Ethiopia, just they come up to Isiolo, from Isiolo, maybe to, I don't know, Embu or where. Then at time there is this dispute of payment. At time they have not paid what they are expected to pay. Then the same smugglers communicate this message to police. Okay. They work together with police, and sorry to say that, and that is because that is what is out there. Then police stop them, confiscate all their passport, if they have any at all, and then put it aside, and then now charge them with being unlawful in the country. So sometimes when you go to the cells and talk to them, at times they don't open unless they speak to their smugglers. So there are these challenges most of the time, and then you are torn in between, but some of them they actually come out and openly say that, yes, I am here to seek asylum. So with that, if they say that, fortunately, if the magistrate is trained, then they will write that order like Simon has said. With documentation, especially on accessing financial services, for example, M-Pesa, I think there is work in progress. I think there is a document from Communication Authority of Kenya, which is awaiting signature, of course, for the last 6 months.
Tutapeleka penzo.
Yeah, so that they can reintroduce refugee documents just into the system. But of course, there is also a challenge of refugee documents expiring like every 5 years. Once it's expired at the end of 5 years, then you go back for renewal. When you go back for renewal,
it's a different number,
a totally different ID number,
numbers,
which now just affect your access to financial services in the. So all this, I think it called for collaboration and working together with refugee-led organization, which is now something which most of the organization are really working on. And working and collaborating with refugee-led organization, it doesn't mean that just for these CBOs just to appear. They have to do research. They have to really identify what problems their communities are going through, and maybe share it with the organization as they seek for a seat around decision-making table with the other major stakeholders.
Thank you, Juni. I feel like you have done a very solid. You have done us a solid. You have answered this question, so thank you so much. Kindly, Simon, what is contained in the 2019 document? And can you highlight and just say, this is what we expect, this is what we expect, this is what we expect. And then after that, because I'm out of time, after you highlight what we are hoping for, what does 2022 camp closure mean? And I will start with you, Amina. So you can throw in your question or comment. And what does 2022 look like with the camp closure that is looming? Yeah. So I'll start with you, Simon.
Thank you, Joy. Let me start with the 2019 bill, the refugee bill.
2019.
It has already been passed by the National Assembly. Just awaiting the president's assent.
Okay. The signature?
The signature, yes. For it to
become, 6 months.
For it to become law. No, actually, it was passed in March.
Okay.
End of March. So we're hoping that, of course, there's again stakeholder engagements before the president signs it. It seeks to amend several clauses and include others within the Refugee Act of 2006.
Okay.
But more fundamentally is the issue of socioeconomic inclusion.
Okay.
That's what I would like to talk about, because there are several clauses. One of the things that that bill, that law will introduce is the fact that the refugee documents will be treated like a Kenyan document.
So that means
refugee
have the
ID
same access.
will be treated as a Kenyan document.
Okay.
So you are able to access Safaricom's M-Pesa or any other communication facilities. You're able to access even the banks because currently they can't. You can be able to apply for a KRA PIN. You can be able to get your business registered. You can apply for a work permit using that because currently it's still a major problem. So we are hoping that once that one is passed, then it will become seamless for refugees and other persons of concern within the country to be able to access services easily. Because right now, for businesses, they are forced to register under the Kenyan names. For M-Pesas, you send Ayan money right now, and the name that comes is Jacqueline Kirago, and yet she's called Ayani. So you wonder if that, and then it's still her phone number. So most of the refugees have been treated with that kind of problem. Because if you register with a Kenyan business, then you're forced to also chip in. That person is part of your business and earns money from you without doing anything.
They simply exist.
Yes. The other point is about 2022 and the directive on camp closure. Of course, it is still an issue that's being discussed by government and other international organizations led by UNHCR. The government has given a directive on alternative status for East African community refugees. What is alternative status? Alternative status here means that the persons from the East African community who happen to be refugees or asylum seekers in the country will be integrated into the country and live as Kenyans.
Oh, but that is only for members within the East
African community.
Okay.
Currently, the members of East African community include Uganda, Burundi, Rwanda, Tanzania, Kenya. There's a talk about South Sudan joining. And Ethiopia as well. But that's still work in progress. Somalia is not among those countries in the East African community. So once the government gave that directive, of course it has to be legalized. So currently there is no law on the alternative status. What UNHCR and RCK are doing right now is to support government in drafting the East African policy on alternative status for the refugees. We are hoping that it will go through and then be discussed and passed before the 2022 deadline for closure of camps. So it will be very critical for that process to go through before we can, of course, talk about that issue. Kenya is a signatory to various conventions on refugees. And even that the Refugee Act itself only supports a durable solution that is voluntary repatriation. So obviously, in 2022, that repatriation will not be voluntary. Will not be voluntary.
And we will be in infringement?
Yes, it will be a direct infringement.
So what would happen if we infringe on international laws? Are there hard laws governing us against infringement of what we have already ratified?
It's a difficult question to deal with because government always says that security is of paramount. So it is the number one thing that government always protects people on. Security. So, but we are hoping with the development of that policy, there will be an amicable solution to the directive on the camp closure. Because it will definitely affect others. But even so, if you close a camp and there's a South Sudanese refugee in Kakuma, for example, who wholly depends on UNHCR for support, they do not have a job, they do not have any kind of a source of income, for instance. You bring that person to live in Nakuru. They have families. How will they fend for themselves? It's still a very difficult question to handle at the moment. And part of the policies that the government passed, that is the Comprehensive Refugee Response Framework in 2020, last year, October, seeks to support refugees to run away from the issue of humanitarian support, which happens right now in the camps, Dadaab and Kakuma and Kalobeye, to the question of sustainable socioeconomic inclusion within the country, so that refugees are able to access the labor market within the country, because currently it's very difficult for them. They are able as well to get employment, because currently it's again very difficult. You will see like Liz pointed out there from DRC, she's studying nursing, for instance.
Yeah.
Once she's through with that course, she'll have again to start the process of getting a work permit, a Class M work permit, for her to be employed, because nobody will employ her without that work permit.
Without the work permit,
and it's very difficult at the moment for her to get a work permit. We are hoping that by then, that law, the Refugee Bill 2019, will have been assented to, and she will seamlessly join the labor market easily, just like any other Kenyan.
Okay, thank you so much. So if the 2019 bill is signed,
yes,
then it means that the 2022 camp closure is not so gloomy anymore, because there's room for it is still a gloomy situation, but it is not as bleak as before, because now there's room for social inclusion, there's room for economic inclusion, there's provision for what's it called, documentation as well, registration and documentation. Yes. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yes.
Thank you so very much. It is much clearer, I mean, for me. Yes. Thank you.
I just want to add something a little bit. When you talk of reintegration, what he said that, certain communities like to live among themselves. So for a southern Sudanese refugee who's lived in Kakuma for X number of years, who already has a community, you move them, for example, what he said in Nakuru, how is he going to integrate? Where is he going to start from? Yeah. So as much as it has a positive side, it also has the social, mental aspect of it. Is it called psychosocial?
Psychosocial
effects, yeah.
I learned this word.
In fact, I know as we conclude, I think I've said this last time, even, that some of the far-fetched counties, when you look at them, sometimes I think their existence most of the time tied to presence of refugees.
Yeah.
I've said that last time. An example of Lokichogo, someone who has been to Lokichogo like some 10, 15 years ago. Now just you go to Lokichogo this time, just is the host town. A ghost town. Yes, refugees, their presence might be, government might define it from the prospect of security threat, but sometimes just in actual sense, it helps the local community where these camps are.
Yeah, as Amina, you're talking about the psychosocial effect.
Psychosocial effect, and we really need to sit down and go back to the drawing board and look at it in all aspects, because you can't just migrate, you can't just move people around without actually looking at what works for them and what doesn't work for them. Yeah. I'll give you an example. When I was with UNHCR, we're doing repatriation from Djibouti to Somalia, and some of the people have lived in camps for 16 years or 20 years.
Oh, wow, okay.
You move them to a new environment. They're unable to get employment immediately. The host community where they've been moved to, although they were there 20 years ago, are not accepted because they're seen as a threat to foreigners. They're not given priority to employment. When he was talking about voluntary even repatriation, that is something you need to really look at it in psychosocial effect of it. Adjusting to new environment. An environment, for example, somebody who was born in a camp, how do you expect them to reintegrate to their home country?
Yeah.
They have never been there. They don't know. Probably even language is a barrier also, because maybe they don't even speak Somali anymore because they've integrated where they've been living.
Yeah.
I've seen South Sudanese refugees who no longer speak their language but speak English and Swahili.
Yeah.
How do you take them back to South Sudan?
So this is an actual issue that we should look at. When I'm saying we, I mean the host communities should look into, and
host government should really consider the basic human rights of how these people are going to exist back home.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for bringing those questions to light. And I would like us to do a round of rap. Okay, now that I'm thinking about it. Anyway, kindly, your closing remarks.
We look forward to a better communities and integrated communities, and a community that not only, like, I'll give you an example, the urban refugees, I hope and pray that the host communities within them will be able to support them and understand their plight, and be able to approach. For example, if I'm a Kenyan Somali and I speak Somali, if I come across a Somali who is in need of help, I should be approachable to support them and direct them to where they need to go.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing up the aspect of and insisting on the psychosocial aspect of it, and mostly towards the positive of it. How do we ensure that people are protected within the psychosocial setups? So thank you so very much. It has been my pleasure to host you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Simon.
Thanks a lot. Mine's an issue of impacting knowledge and enhancing the capacity of the stakeholders and the refugee and the host communities to understand the refugee laws and policies within the country. Once that's done, I think we are going to have a very seamless and harmonious kind of living between the refugees and the host communities. And secondly, and finally, just for government to develop the necessary policies that will support and protect the refugees and other forced migrants within the country. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for bringing to light what we need to do as members of the host community, what the governments need to do. Thank you for helping us understand like the tidbits of the law and what needs to be done and how we can plug in. So thank you for being here. It has been amazing hosting you.
My pleasure.
Thank you for giving me that opportunity.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Asante. Ayan.
And I have not. I have not much. I don't have much to say. What I want to say is that at least now I can take back to the community that the services are there and it's at least accessible. At least we can show them how to. And at least we can refer and direct to them to the right channels.
Yeah. And now you know Ojuni.
Yeah, I know them. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your story. It is a very intimate story, and thank you for allowing us into your world and letting us in on that. Thank you for the amazing work you're doing around your community. And it is I generally feel like it is a challenge to members of the host communities as well, because you found a gap and you filled it. So it is a call for members of the host community as well to fill the gaps within their society. So thank you so very much for doing that. It is exceptional work.
Okay,
and thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting. Thank you.
Ojuni.
Yeah, just mine is to say thank you, as always, to the government of Kenya and the host community. It is not easy just to house a guest for as long as you don't know how long, and that's really, as much as we have, we focus more on the unfortunate part of refugee stays in Kenya. I think the government and the host population should be really appreciated for their perseverance, patience, and sharing the little resources that they have with the refugees. As much as I say that, I think just your book, Try My Shoe, I think says it all. At least for the few who don't really understand the challenges that refugees are going through, I think it is good they go through the book and maybe they try the shoe of refugee and then see how it pinches.
Thank you for doing a promo for Refu Poet there. Thank you so very much for coming. It has been a pleasure having you. And as you said it the first time, and you've reiterated it again, and you said economic inclusion is very important. A town like Lodwar is now a ghost town because of what you guys decided to do away with refugees. So thank you very much. Also, thank you for sharing your legalese and your legal expertise. I mean, we have all asked questions and you have answered them very graciously. So thank you.
Thank you. Much.
And thank you, my audience. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening in. Thank you for giving us your time. I hope that this conversation has you thinking about these issues more in a broader way. Thank you for telling other people about these conversations. Thank you for going to our pages, Refiport and Anika, and subscribing. I don't know if you can subscribe on Facebook, but thank you for going to our pages and commenting on this conversation and on more conversation. And thank you for sharing. Thank you because you are amazing and for listening in. I again just want to appreciate GIZ CPS Special Initiative on Displacement, because without them, this whole platform would just remain as an idea. But thank you for making this a reality, and thank you Refugee and Anika for organizing this, and thank you again, my audience. I cannot stop thanking you. So I will end it at that, and you are amazing. Be safe. Bye.
The online dialogue series of Refugee was commissioned by the Special Initiative on Displacement SIF, program of the Civil Peace Service of GIZ. We appreciate the discussions and insights shared. The opinions expressed in these dialogue series are those of the speakers. They do not necessarily reflect the opinions or views of GIZ.